Imagine a world of opulent palaces, shimmering gowns, and glittering jewels. A world where every gesture was choreographed, every word measured, and every appearance a spectacle of power and prestige. This was the life of royal women throughout history, figures of immense influence and fascination. But beneath the layers of silk and lace, behind the carefully constructed facades of grandeur, lay a truth that might just turn your stomach. For many of these queens and empresses, personal hygiene was a concept far removed from our modern understanding, leading to realities that were, to put it mildly, quite foul. Prepare to delve into the truly filthy truth as we uncover the stories of 4 royal women who, despite their exalted status, were said to have smelled rather badly. Our journey begins with Queen Elizabeth I of England, the formidable Virgin Queen, a monarch whose reign is celebrated as a golden age. Yet, even Gloriana herself was not immune to the hygiene standards of her time. While she was known for her love of sweet perfumes and her frequent changes of linen, actual bathing was a rare event. It was believed that excessive washing, especially with hot water, could open the pores and allow diseases to enter the body. This was a common medical belief, rooted in the ancient Greek theory of humours, which posited that the body's health depended on the balance of 4 bodily fluids. Instead, Elizabeth relied on dry cleaning her clothes and using strong scents to mask any unpleasant odours. Her teeth, famously blackened from a love of sweets, were rarely cleaned, contributing to a less than fresh breath. The sugar, a luxury imported from the New World, was a status symbol, and its consumption, despite its detrimental effects on dental health, was a clear indicator of wealth. Imagine the close quarters of the court, the elaborate dances, the whispered conversations, all against a backdrop of accumulated body odor and stale breath. The sheer number of courtiers, servants, and petitioners crammed into relatively small spaces, often without proper ventilation, would have amplified any lingering scents. Elizabeth's dedication to her image was legendary, but it was an image maintained through artifice, not through rigorous personal cleanliness. She would often receive foreign dignitaries and ambassadors, and one can only imagine the sensory experience of these formal encounters, where the clash of rich perfumes and underlying body odors created a unique olfactory tapestry of the Elizabethan court. Furthermore, the lack of proper waste disposal within palaces meant that even the grandest halls could be permeated by the stench of human and animal waste, adding another layer to the olfactory assault. Courtiers would often carry pomanders, small perforated containers filled with aromatic substances to combat the pervasive smells, but these offered only a temporary and localized respite from the overwhelming reality of the era. Next, we turn our attention to the Sun King's wife, Maria Theresa of Spain, Queen of France and Navarre, consort to Louis XIV. The court of Versailles was a marvel of extravagance, a testament to absolute monarchy. Yet, even here, the standards of hygiene were shockingly low by today's measures. Maria Theresa, like many of her contemporaries, rarely bathed. Accounts suggest she only took a full bath a few times in her entire life. This was not uncommon, as bathing was often seen as a medical treatment rather than a daily routine. When baths were taken, they were often communal, with family members sharing the same bathwater, further highlighting the vastly different approach to cleanliness. Instead, she would wash her face and hands daily and rely on perfumes and changes of undergarments. The practice of changing linen frequently was considered a form of cleanliness, as it was believed that linen absorbed impurities from the body. However, this did little to address the underlying issue of body odor too. The sheer number of people living in close proximity within the palace, coupled with the lack of proper sanitation, meant that the air was often thick with a mixture of human and animal waste, unwashed bodies, and heavy perfumes. Versailles, despite its grandeur, lacked basic plumbing for much of its early history, with chamber pots being the primary method of waste disposal, often emptied directly out of windows. This created an environment ripe for unpleasant smells and the spread of disease. The palace itself was a labyrinth of unhygienic practices, with courtiers relieving themselves in stairwells and behind tapestries, contributing to a truly overwhelming stench. Maria Theresa, despite her royal standing, was a product of this environment, and her personal scent would have been a reflection of the prevailing customs of the time. Her reliance on strong floral and musky perfumes would have been a desperate attempt to mask the pervasive odors of the court, creating a complex and often overwhelming sensory experience for anyone in her presence. The constant presence of animals within the palace, from hunting dogs to exotic birds, also contributed to the overall lack of freshness, adding another layer to the already potent mix of smells. Our third royal figure is Catherine the Great of Russia, an enlightened empress who expanded her empire and embraced the arts. While Catherine was more progressive in many ways, her personal hygiene habits were still a far cry from what we consider acceptable today. Though she did bathe more frequently than some European monarchs, it was still not a daily ritual. The harsh Russian climate, with its long, cold winters, also played a role, making frequent bathing less practical and appealing. Furthermore, the heavy, layered clothing worn to combat the cold would have exacerbated any body odors, trapping heat and moisture close to the skin. There are accounts that suggest Catherine suffered from various ailments that would have contributed to unpleasant smells, including skin conditions and digestive issues, which were often poorly understood and treated in the 18th century. Like many royals, she relied heavily on strong perfumes and scented powders to mask these. The grandeur of the Russian court, much like Versailles, often concealed a less than fragrant reality, where the scent of unwashed bodies mingled with the cloying sweetness of artificial fragrances. The vastness of the Russian palaces, while impressive, also meant that heating and maintaining cleanliness throughout was a monumental task, often leading to areas that were less than pristine. So, Catherine's personal chambers might have been meticulously kept, but the surrounding environment would have presented a constant challenge to maintaining a fresh scent. The sheer scale of her court, with hundreds of servants and courtiers, meant that even with the best intentions, maintaining a high level of hygiene for everyone was an impossible feat. The use of elaborate wigs and heavy makeup, while aesthetically pleasing, also served to conceal skin ailments and other physical imperfections that might have arisen from poor hygiene. Finally, we journey to the Tudor court and consider Mary I of England, often known as Bloody Mary. I of England, often known as Mary's reign, was marked by religious turmoil and political strife, but her personal life was also fraught with challenges, including various illnesses like her half-sister Elizabeth. Mary's bathing habits were infrequent, adhering to the common belief that water was a conduit for disease. This fear of water was widespread, stemming from a misunderstanding of how diseases spread. Instead of bathing, people would often use dry cloths and scented oils to clean themselves. She would have relied on dry cleaning and perfumes. Historical accounts suggest that Mary suffered from phantom pregnancies and other gynecological issues, which could have contributed to discomfort and unpleasant odors. These conditions, often chronic and debilitating, would have made maintaining personal freshness an even greater challenge. The medical knowledge of the era was limited, and treatments often involved strange concoctions that did little to alleviate symptoms or improve hygiene. For instance, remedies for various ailments often included ingredients like mercury or lead, which were toxic and could exacerbate existing health problems. Mary's struggles, both political and personal, were undoubtedly compounded by the pervasive lack of cleanliness that characterized the period. The constant stress of her reign, coupled with her physical ailments, would have made her personal comfort and hygiene a low priority, further contributing to the less than pleasant reality of her daily life. The lack of proper sanitation extended to personal waste, with chamber pots being emptied into open sewers or directly into rivers, further contributing to the unsanitary conditions that permeated daily life, even for royalty. The stories of these royal women, from Elizabeth I to Mary I, Maria Theresa to Catherine the Great, paint a vivid, if somewhat malodorous, picture of royal life. They remind us that even those at the pinnacle of power were subject to the prevailing customs and scientific understanding of their times. The grand narratives of history often gloss over these intimate, uncomfortable details, but understanding the realities of personal hygiene in past centuries offers a more complete and, dare we say, more human portrait of these iconic figures. It highlights the stark contrast between the idealized image of royalty and the often gritty reality of their daily existence. These women, despite their immense power and wealth, lived in a world where basic sanitation was a luxury and medical knowledge was rudimentary. Their reliance on perfumes, changes of linen, and the avoidance of bathing were not signs of personal failing, but rather a reflection of the prevailing beliefs and limitations of their eras. The sheer resilience of these individuals living in conditions that would appall us today is a testament to their strength and adaptability. So, the next time you admire a portrait of a regal queen, remember that beneath the finery and the stoic gaze, there might have been a less than pleasant truth, and perhaps be a little more grateful for your daily shower.